operations. As you've heard folks comment, we are not going to be successful if we can't deliver an agile architecture that can connect sensors to shooters and has the ability to move information at all classifications with the agility of going through the path that is most available, that there aren't barriers to how we move that. And so we are focused on how we're going to do that, and we are working hard with industry to really move us into a place with software solutions rather than hardware solutions that will help us move with greater speed than we've moved in the past to address that.
Okay, sir, so just real quick, I think the first part of your question there, sir, I think is important to kind of double down on a little bit. The continuing resolutions, and I would say that I think everybody on this platform and probably most of the folks in the audience is we need stable, predictable funding. It's not good for any of us. It makes life tough, and it certainly impacts readiness in a very dramatic way, right? And then you throw inflation on top of that. But within that physical environment, as you said, sir, how are we working to deal with primarily the focus, our pacing threat, which is the Chinese Communist Party? I really don't like calling it the PRC because there's nothing republic about China. How are we facing the CCP? My Commandant has stepped off at speed, at flank speed, with, as you all know, with force design. We are moving very, very quickly, and I can assure you that there will be no let up on the accelerator. And now I've been put in that position behind General Eric Smith, who is now the Assistant Commandant of the Marine Corps. That force design remains our #1 priority, but we have made Eric Smith and the team have made significant leaps and bounds. I will tell you that from my perspective, my priority now is I'm tired of analyzing. It's paralysis through analysis. We need to stop it. The Chinese aren't waiting. She doesn't go to a board of directors and ask or worry about risk, and we are losing time. It is a sense of urgency is critical here, which is why the Commandant will not let off the accelerator. So what I'm looking for is getting certain different capabilities in the hands of the operators and letting them begin to experiment. My warfighting lab, run by Brigadier General Ben Watson, oversees that effort, and we've already seen tremendous payoff from that. So I would say, I think I answered the question there, sir, but that would be my priority. Urgency, experimentation, and let's get moving out.
All right. Hey, good morning and again. And the submarine force priorities are pretty simple. So warfighting, people, and safety. And our focus is the PRC. So I want to touch a little bit about the warfighting aspect priority and some attributes of that. The first one is enhancing strategic deterrence. So #1 priority of the Department of Defense is ensuring that the Columbia-class submarine is delivered on time. With that, we have to ensure that the Ohio-class submarine is operated until 2042. That means to modernize and sustain, so there is no gap in strategic deterrence from the undersea. The second priority as part of warfighting is integrating combat power with the joint force. And for the submarine force, our center of gravity for that integration is our Theater Undersea Warfare Commander Centers. With that, we need to modernize and improve our C2 structure within the TUSWIC and their Maritime Operations Center. As Admiral Ashback talked about Project Overmatch, Nautica is part of the submarine force aspect of Project Overmatch to improve the sensor capability of the submarine force. All source sensors to include undersea, surface, space, and shore. And the last part of the warfighting is to enable all-domain maneuver warfare. And we'll do that by continuing our block buy of a Virginia-class submarine. To block 5 of note, we'll go from 12 to 40 vertical launched missile tubes. We need to continue our acoustic superiority where we have the overmatch of all our adversaries and we can never let that slip. Our swiftest combat control systems continue to be modernized and improved. We've got an open architecture system there that is a very successful program within the Navy, and we'll continue to improve that. And also production of our heavyweight ADCAP torpedo, which is the most lethal aspect of our undersea capabilities. We need to continue to improve that.
For that, I'm going to ask another question here. The man train and equip responsibility is dependent on many enablers, such as acquisition, recruiting, maintenance, to name a few. I was particularly struck by the bluntness of Admiral Caudill's recent remarks, where he said, we need to be offended by not having the right manning. We need to be offended by not getting ships out at the right time. So for all of you, are you satisfied or are you offended with what is being delivered by industry, the SysComs, and the depots, both in terms of quality and speed?
I would say from the surface community, yeah, I remain a little bit offended. And it's not for, I think there's good coordination. I mean, some of the, we had to clean up our own kind of act a little bit. And so, we went on this journey, the entire Navy, on this, plan to perform and P2P. And it helped us identify some things we were doing wrong. And so, there is some good news there where we've identified, how we can do better. As I talk about, hey, one of our priorities is producing more ready ships. Well, how do you do that? Well, you have to make sure you deliver your ships coming out of maintenance on time, and you have to sustain them. And we haven't been very good about delivering our ships coming out of maintenance on time. Matter of fact, before we embarked on our P2P journey, we were probably delivering about 25% on time. Now, I think for 21, we're looking at, because we still have some ships in maintenance, probably around 59%. And so, yes, that's better, but it's still not that good. And so that's an area I think we need to continue to work with industry and leverage, some of our information we provide to them. Industry's been providing information back to us, particularly, in the manning department, where we can now measure, okay, what do we need? What are they manning to? Some of it is a national problem with not having the right size labor force or not having the right skill sets. And so I do think it's something we need to continue to work at, particularly if you think about if we went and had to do this fight and then the repair options forward, how to get things out of the depot quickly to get them into the fight. Those are all things that we're thinking about and working with industry on. And the other one that challenges us, and I've talked to the industry group about this before, and we mentioned it a little bit here with Admiral Eschbach, is software development. Software development, I will tell you, plagues me whether you're talking about machinery control systems, combat systems, or quite frankly, simulators, right? Running our simulators to the high end. Pick a ship class and I can kind of talk to you about a problem. And so we need to be more adaptive at that. And I think I've seen some progress lately talking to different groups, working with Admiral O'Connor, who runs the Forge, right, for Aegis, doing our combat systems. We need to be able to build to a certain capability and then say, okay, let's stop here, install it, and move on. We don't need to have the golden globe for the combat system. We need to have capability forward, and we can't allow it to prevent us from moving ships forward. So that's an area where I talk a lot about, or I ask industry a lot to help me out with. And I get it, it's not hard. Getting the talent to do that within the Department of Defense and in the defense industry when you're competing with Google and Microsoft and others where they get paid a lot more money is challenging. But that should be an objective for all of us as we recruit talent. And that kind of goes into the second, segues nicely into the second piece, is manning. Are we satisfied with manning? No. I think we've done better overall about improving manning throughout the fleet over the last number of years. It's probably better than it was when I was a cruiser commander. However, we still have challenges distributing it across the force, and so we remain challenges in certain skill sets that we're working on, and more work is required. But those are, so yes, I do worry about that, and I think we have more work to do in all of those areas.
I think we've got, the last year's been a good learning year between the Navy as well as our industry partners. I think the model that we have, or I've seen through this perform to plan model that we've had an open kimono with industry, and we've noticed that the kimono on the other side of the aisle is also opened up. We're not doing things exactly right from a Navy perspective. We've made some errors, and industry has understood and come forward where they've made some errors. I think the sense of urgency in the repairs, in the delivery programs has improved over the last year, but it's been the first part of the flywheel to get up to speed, to understand how we need to fight and be today in great power competition. A couple, we've got some great examples for reliability control boards where we bought brand new platforms, brand new systems, and they're operating at about a 6 to 16% on wing time. That's absolutely not going to, we can't sustain that in this fight. Industries realized where their shortcomings were, as well as we've understood where the training piece, the installation piece, as well as our understanding of how we need to maintain these systems. And we've come together to increase those capabilities across every one of the platforms. Again, every type model series has this methodology set up, and industry has risen to the occasion to deliver for us. We've had some glaring speed bumps over the last couple of years as we do service life modification on Super Hornet, delivery for JSF, make sure that E2D is the quarterback of the fleet, the airborne quarterback of the fleet, continue modifications and deliveries on P8, where I think that industry has realized the environment that we're in. You saw the speech from Admiral Harris today. You know, this is not an exercise. This is not a drill. We've been beating the drum for about 18 to 24 months now as the TICOMs here, understanding through the intelligence that we've had, understanding this, what I would call a rapid buildup. And I think industry has risen to the occasion, but it's only the first step as we climb the Eiffel Tower here. We've got a long way to go. And it's the open communications and understanding where we fail across both sides of the aisle that's allowed us to progress. So I'll give it about a 50-50 right now based on, again, those relationships. From a manning side of the house, we're woefully behind in naval aviation. I've talked about, and I'm not talking about numbers here, in a fit-fill perspective. JSF, E2D, CMV-22, Block 3 Super Hornet, GCM mods on Growlers, PMIs complete and modifications on Sierras and Romeos. We've moved back into the old days of closed-loop detailing through a concept called aviation maintenance experience, where we've had to maintain, keep that experience within the platforms and recycle that back to get our return on investment. That's all great once we get them and we do the training piece within the squadrons and within the type wings. What we're failing on right now, and I need industry help with, is that training piece at the very beginning to get that expertise, that optical wire chasing that we need to do. E2D right now, an AT in E2C cannot function as an AT in E2D. For us to say that our CNET U's and our NATEX are going to be able to train starting when the 100-yard dash pistol has already gone off and the capabilities are already 50 yards ahead, and we are going to catch up as a singular Navy unit alone inside of the Navy, is not going to happen. We need to bring our training back to world-class capabilities and align to 5th and 6th generation capabilities and have our kids be able to maintain those. And I need industry's help on that. Over.
From my perspective, I would say we have a really healthy partnership with the Syscoms and industry, but I would say, unfortunately for all of you, we're never going to be satisfied. We always have to be anticipating or thinking about what is the next technical innovation or capability that we need to be embracing, and we need to be outthinking and outpacing the competition. And so my concern is if we are ever satisfied with anything, we probably are already falling behind or already behind the competition in information warfare. And so we've got to press as best we can to move faster and to outthink the creative ways in which we harness all the great technical innovation that's happening. So we have a number of methods for doing that in partnership with NavWar. I know we're trying to incentivize with industry that we think faster, but I would say where I echo Admiral Cottle and being offended is actually inside our Navy lifelines, where we've been working harder to actually deliver wholeness, where we are innovating and delivering fantastic capability. We are sometimes forgetting that we need manpower, we need training, we need doctrine, we need sustainment, maintenance, and modernization plans, and often those are missing relative to the great capabilities we are fielding. And so I do find that I often want to put my forehead on the table some days when we look at great capability we've brought to the table, but somehow we've forgotten all the other things that need to go with it to keep it operating effectively. So I do think we have work to do in that area.
So I think, first of all, you don't want us to ever be satisfied, right? That's why we demand stuff from you. Second of all, is, to flip this thing back on us, as long as we keep allowing CRs to drive how we're doing things, it's kind of hard for me to look out at the audience and go, you got a problem, right? We need to get our house in order here on how we're doing business. It makes it difficult for all of us. All I will say is it kind of echoes some of the things that Commandant talked about as far as, the exquisite, expensive few over the abundant, affordable, and available, right? That's kind of been his driving factor behind force design. Everybody understands 5th gen is probably a ticket into the fight. Got it. There's some things that are going to have. But then, perfect, the enemy is just good enough, right? That's kind of where we're going. And that's where, and again, from a survivability perspective, which seems to constantly be a pain in my butt down there, how far, it seems like we always take every discussion to the far right of the competition, crisis, conflict continuum, right? We take it all the way over to the far right on the Romo. We look through a soda straw, just short of slinging intercontinental ballistic missiles, and that's where we start. The Commandant's bid is with force design, with expeditionary advanced space operations, all within the construct of distributed maritime operations. We keep things in the left. Again, what we heard Admiral Harris talk about today, alliances, partnerships, and relationships. That's what this thing is all about. So, and what that means is, and I'm going to go back to my earlier comment about let's get stuff out in the hands of the fleet. Let them start experimenting, and then we'll go from there. But we got to be careful about over-engineering in the name of survivability. Survivable for what, right? And again, survivability, if anybody wants to have a discussion, we can do it offline, but there's a lot of aspects of survivability. It's not just drawing a DF whatever line and saying everything inside it's dead. So that's a big part of it, I think. And from the manpower piece, as you know, my Commandant's second priority is talent management. He produced a document. We're moving out. Lieutenant General Adignon, Manpower Reserve Affairs, we are moving out. Again, almost at a pace where we're trying to keep up with the Commandant. Maturing the force, and we're doing a lot of things. We're going to reshape how we recruit. As you know, the Marine Corps does a pretty good job recruiting, so we're going to take a look at how we're doing and make it even better. That's it.
Okay, hey, I'm going to foot stomp a little bit about being a demanding customer, and we all are, and we should be. Am I satisfied with manning? Absolutely, I am satisfied in the submarine force. Our manning is probably the best it's been in several years, and I think that's because everybody wants to be a submariner, right? So, but the manning is good in the submarine force. Am I satisfied with industry? No, I'm not satisfied with industry, and I'll give you a little bit some statistics here on what I'm talking about. Right now, I'm at a low point in my fast attack numbers. I'm at 47 SSNs. For idle time for my submarines that are awaiting maintenance because they've exceeded their periodicity for unrestricted operations, that means they can't submerge. In fiscal year 16, we had about 360 days of idle time. Last year, we had almost 1,500 days of idle time. That's 4 SSNs that I could not use for operations. For maintenance delays, I had about 3.5 SSNs based on where they were supposed to finish their availability and where they finished. So that's about 7.5 SSNs that I could not use last year because of waiting maintenance or a maintenance delay. Same thing with shipbuilding delays. We're encountering that. So, there's a lot of challenges within our shipbuilding industry and our maintenance industry. COVID, supply chain issues. Back in the 80s, we had 17,000 suppliers for the submarine force. Now we're down to 5,000 suppliers for the submarine force. That hurts, and that affects our ability to get our submarines out on time. So we're partners with NAVSEA in the perform to plan process. We're partners with NAVSEA in the submarine force. We're ensuring our submarines are ready to go at the start of the availability to increase the efficiency. And, some of the things that NAVSEA is working on is expanding capability and capacity within their shipyards, optimizing production, investing in capital equipment, and investing in manpower, recruiting and training those shipyard workers, and we need to support them.
Okay, thanks for that. I'm going to call a little bit of an audible. We have about 45 minutes left, and so I want to give the audience, all of you, a chance to ask specific questions. So I'm going to ask 2 questions, one each of 2 people, and then turn it over to the audience, if that works for everybody. So for Jeff, I'm excited about the new AUKUS pact, the Australia, United Kingdom, United States pact that I talked about during my remarks earlier, and the American commitment to join the UK in sharing our nuclear submarine technology with the Australians with the goal of building an SSN force in Australia. So I wonder if you could share with this audience how you're going to help make this a reality. And for General Heckel, in 2019, the Commandant announced what many called a radical new plan to remake the Marine Corps. David Ignatius recently wrote that the Commandant appears to have pulled this off. The Marine Corps is smaller, more agile, and has shed its tanks and tankers and so on. Ignatius says that the Marine Corps does look like a force of the future, not the past. So how does this translate to the Marine Corps returning to its roots as an amphibious force? Jeff?
Okay, sir, I'll start with the AUKUS question. So I first want to say that the submarine force, we share strong ties with allies and partners throughout the globe. And in no way does the AUKUS agreement diminish those partnerships and interoperability that we have with the rest of our allies and partners throughout the globe. With that said, AUKUS is really a historic announcement with two of our closest allies, and it's really focusing on a free and open Indo-Pacific region, which is critical to the world. I think last week the White House released their Indo-Pacific strategy, which called out AUKUS as a part of that. And it's very important, and obviously home-ported in Pearl Harbor and operating with the Australians and the UK and the Pacific is something that we continue to do. In fact, in our submarine command course that we have right now, we have 2 Australian officers as part of the submarine command course, and we've had that throughout our history. And we also, every other year, we have a submarine that operates in the Australian waters as part of the submarine command course. So we've had that long-standing history with the Australians and the UK with interoperability and cooperation with our submarine force. With respect to AUKUS, right now we've just entered an 18-month consultative period, trilateral period between the UK, Australia, and the United States. And this is led by the Department of Defense and supported by the Department of Energy. And the purpose of that 18-month consultative period is really to figure out how we're going to deliver a nuclear-powered submarine to Australia in the shortest period of time. So we've got to give that period, that 18-month consultative period, a time to figure that out. But as also part of that, we're working on advanced capabilities as part of AUKUS. And that includes cyber, artificial intelligence, quantum technologies, and undersea capabilities, advanced undersea capabilities that will also be part of AUKUS. And that's where all fit in. It comes up packed with those undersea advanced capabilities, such as UUVs, unmanned, subsea seabed warfare, and as we work towards those capabilities. So really, really happy about AUKUS, working with the Australians, and I think it's a great initiative.
So, sir, great question. Again, kind of goes to some of the comments I've already made, but I'm going to just reiterate, the Commandant stepped out on this really, really quick and in a lot of ways, clearly thoughtful and with a clear plan of how we're going to get there. And I'll just make a couple of points here with regard to how force design is going. So the first thing the Commandant did in 2019 was he reestablished the Fleet Marine Force, which I think collectively across the Marine Corps we loved, right? We were so glad to have the FMF, the Fleet Marine Force, back, which again brings back back to the amphibious roots, right, which you talked about. So now the nation called. So for 20 years, we conducted sustained combat operations ashore, and we will always answer the call when the nation comes because, as Matt has said, this organization, the Marine Corps, has no institutional confusion about what we are and what we do. We fight, and we fight well. And that's what we did, and we always will. But the Commandant clearly identified with the new pacing threat with the CCP, we needed to refocus and get back to the naval roots. And the first thing he did was the FMF as a part of the Naval Expeditionary Force, clearly, which enables the joint force and everything above and gives our leadership decision space. But I want to reiterate, the MAGTAF remains, right? The Marine Air Ground Task Force has never gone anywhere, never will. It is the absolute core of everything we are. It's scalable. Because you always, every time something happens around the world, the first question is, it's the Naval War College answer, right? Well, it depends, right? We will tailor to that specific scenario. And the MAGTF can do it like nobody else. But I want to reiterate again, as long as we have our amphibious brothers and sisters there with us, it doesn't work, right? It just doesn't work. And if you look back at August of 21, I was still the 1 MEF commander, and look at what a quick snapshot of what happened. AUKUS goes down. Marines from the 24th Marine Expeditionary Unit go in. 2nd Battalion, 1st Marines flies in from PSAB Air Base in Saudi Arabia into AUKUS. Those were the preponderance of the Marines that were killed that day in the blast at Abbey Gate. We had USS Arlington, LPD, out of Norfolk, head down to Haiti for HADR, for Humanitarian Assistance Disaster Relief. We had Special Purpose MAGTF Darwin going on. We had 31st MU doing its patrol right in China's grill, right? That's a snapshot of what the Naval Expeditionary Force brings together, and that's where the Commandant's going to continue to drive us. And then lastly, we never have, never will step away from our responsibilities as our nation's preeminent crisis response force. But again, and Special Purpose MAGTFs, the Marine Air Ground Task Force that we have scattered all over the place now, centered a lot around the Marine Medium Tilt Rotor Squadrons and the KC-130Js, I don't like because it separates us from our Navy brothers and sisters. It's bad. My opinion only. And that was an answer to not enough amphibs, clearly. And if you look at the current COCOM demand signal, it's about 5.5 MUs, ARGs, is what the demand signal is. So the crisis response remains, but again, without the amphibious ready group, the Marine Expeditionary Unit is only half an equation, okay? Maybe even less than that, all right? I don't know if that answered the question, sir, but that's it.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to turn the microphones over to you all, to the audience. Please come up to the mics, ask your question. You can ask a general question of all of the panelists or a specific question of a specific panelist. We'll run this for a while, and then I may take it back and ask another question as I think about it a little bit. But over to you. We'll start right here.
Good morning, Admirals and General Lieutenant Commander Smith, Operations Officer on board USS San Diego. Do you hear me better, sir? Good morning, Admirals, General Lieutenant Commander Smith, Operations Officer on board USS San Diego. My question for the panel, gentlemen and ma'am, is all of our strategic guidance on nearly every page has alliances and partnerships as its cornerstone. And as we're learning how to communicate better in a joint environment, how are we building those channels and platforms now to incorporate our alliances and partnerships, vice incorporating them later, it being more costly? Thank you.
I'm happy to start. From an information warfare perspective, we start this work at our Warfighting Development Center, and Admiral Mike Vernaza and the team that lead information warfighting development are partnered both across our services and then with Coalition and how we're working on developing tactics, techniques, procedures, pacing, technical integration. And so for all the programs that we have, we're always thinking about, who are those partners and the alliances that we need to be building right from the very beginning as we're integrating and addressing what we do with capabilities. And so some examples on the DoD side, where we develop our warfighting tactics instructors, we actually have Marines and Coast Guard who participate in our training, and so we train together. They leverage our program, and we're producing information warfare witties collectively across the tri-service, which is really exciting in terms of how we're learning from each other, integrating capability. On our emissions control work that we're doing, we're fully integrated with the Army and the Marine Corps on tactics, techniques, and procedures. And in the battle exercises that we do and lab work, shaking that out across so we learn from each other consistently. And then from a coalition standpoint, we are working, like for Information Warfare Commander, we actually created releasable versions of the TAC memo that we have so that the Italians, the French, the Japanese, I think now we're looking at India, the Brits, when they deployed with their carrier strike group recently, had an Information Warfare Commander on board, and all of that informed through partnership with us. So we have a number of ways in which we pursue that.
Yeah, I'll just answer it a little bit from the same perspective. One, I think we're consistently exercising it and looking ahead and trying to anticipate the requirements. And our WIDIs have been playing a huge role in that, our weapons tactics instructors. One of the things I would say, though, just from a sustainment perspective in what we have available to us now, a lot of those systems are resident, and we just need to make sure that we're making sure they work, they're robust, the right training is in place. I mean, I think this week at the same time we're sitting here, we have the RIMPAC planning conference going on. That's an excellent opportunity. I had my Canadian counterpart in talking to me yesterday on how we get better and more resilient with these communications. But frustrating sometimes to me is we have built these systems into our ships, and then the training aspect of it is just not there. And that's on myself and Admiral Eschbach and others to come in and make sure you're getting that, because I would argue that we have more capability than you think, and we're just not delivering on that training piece. And that's also something that I think industry can help us out with as we expand that capability. And so that's my 2 cents on that topic.
Yeah, the common theme across this is going to be our warfighting development centers, and the same thing for me up at Nautic. Has brought in Resolute Hunter, which works across all domains. It's a non-kinetic event that we run across all the services. We bring coalition partners in, space cyber capabilities for non-kinetic effects, and then pair that up as we finish up with great power competition, Air Wing Fallon for the kinetic side of the house. So our WDCs are the ones that are breaking us in to make sure that we're working across the stovepipes right now. Internal the Navy, the Air Defense Strike Group Training Facility brings surface crew des up to make sure that the air defense of the strike group and ESG is properly taken care of. And then through, again, the knife side of the house, our relationship with the U.S. Air Force through WEPTAC scenarios, as well as the WISNs, the weapons school integration. You know, as of late, for the Indo-Pacific problem, the understanding that this is a maritime fight, maritime targeting, lightning bolts have to work across all of the services here. We've brought the Air Force Weapons School and all the other services in to contribute to the weapons school integration, where our capstone event for Growler and E2 is the Air Force Weapons School event.
Thank you, Admiral. Brent Sadler from the Heritage Foundation. There's been a lot of talk about how you're adapting, but I really kind of want to get very explicit about, are you adapting fast enough for China, and what way are you testing that assessment?
Are you addressing a specific person, or?
Actually, the question is open to the panel.
I'll jump in again first. I would say that I worry that we're not adapting fast enough. And part of that is on us, because as I talked about in my prioritization, we're not providing deep enough, complex enough training to really challenge our folks on their skills and skill development. I think we have the talent. We're recruiting fabulous people, but whether we're actually arming them to understand the complexity and affording them a chance to be really innovative with the capabilities we've given them, I do worry that we're not moving fast enough. And so I do think that's on us. We are leaning in on the LVC development. We're also in partnership, as we were talking about the warfighting development centers and the training we do across the fleet readiness continuum to increase the complexity of our exercises. I would give great credit right now to Strike Group 4 and Strike Group 15 for the cooperative work they've been doing in really developing more complex scenarios and events that I think are creating the kind of stressing environments that are forcing across all of our mission areas the integration that really is hopefully testing us in ways that we may have to operate down the line. So I think we recognize, and I think we all are stressed, that we may not be doing enough or moving fast enough, and are all in, I think, lockstep on trying to move as fast as we can to do better in that sense.
Hey, so real quick, because there's a lot of questions, but no, and nobody should, if anybody thinks we're moving fast enough, you're crazy, right? I mean, it's insanity. And I would say we need to double down our efforts and figure out a way to move quicker. And does that mean there's going to be risk? Yes, but consider the options. So, and that's coming from the service that basically our commandant is, I mean, we're moving, right? and we're moving fast. Some would say too fast. I disagree. I think we're moving about at the right speed, and we'll modulate. But the point is, let's start doing some OJT, right? Let's get some stuff out in the field. Let's get some stuff out in the hands of the operators, and then we go from there. And that means close and personal integration with industry, right? Because we're going to turn that back and move faster. So my 2 cents worth.
Hey, Jeff?
Yeah, just real quick, we are not moving fast enough. When I got to SubPAC, our UWDC was doing TAC Dev for technologies that would be put on a submarine in the next 10 years or so. I need technologies in the near term. I need TAC Dev to be done quickly and put those technologies on my submarine for the near term, which I mean next 2 to 5 years.
I'll just add real quick. I would say we're not moving fast enough, but our velocity is increasing. I would tell you the amount of integrated training that we do with the aviation community and the submarine community as we build through our Comp 2X training and our surf war comms and our air war comms is at a level I've never seen before. And so that's a good sign. The participation in the games and then bringing from the war games into the, out to our exercises, our operational tactical exercises is moving very quickly, but still trails the target.
Good morning, Justin Katz with Breaking Defense. I wanted to drill down I wanted to drill down on what you said, Vice Admiral Whitesell, about your North Star. Could you just explain a little more about what you mean by a North Star? First of all, is that a statistic for, how many of your platforms are ready? Is that an inventory requirement? And second of all, what is that number doing for you? There's no shortage of readiness statistics to go around. What are you hoping to accomplish by giving out these North Stars?
That's a good question. So the North Star is mission capability rate. And from mission capability rate, it gives me a lower control, it gives me an objective number, it gives me a lower control limit, as well as a hard deck where we have business rules to get back to the North Star, the mission capability rate. In the mission capability rate, it ensures that I've got platforms that can go forward and satisfy at least one mission that is primary or secondary to that platform. So to have that platform, to be able to achieve those numbers, I've got to have both the supply side, the FRC, the fleet replacement centers, the repair capability, industry support on delivery, reliability control board. It all trickles down from the Christmas tree where the tier 1 driver for me is the mission capability. And because of that number, and now everyone, no matter where you are in the driver trees or in the 7 pillars of NSSA, so if you are an FRC, a repair component, if you're a supplier, if you are a consultant or in one of the industries, you understand every day. I get up every single day and I look at numbers across the type model series, and from that number it drives what are the corrective actions to get to the demand signal so that we can war fight today. This is to be able to fight today so that, as Admiral Aquilino and Admiral Paparo state, if the balloon should go up, every able-bodied platform is going forward. This allows me to not start shoot behind the duck. I can now say, because of these MC numbers, and if I can maintain them, and my strive to maintain them, that if the balloon goes up, aviation's going up at the same time.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we're going to go over here, and then here, and then like that, okay?
Admirals, great panel. On a warfighting adaptation, I want to follow on a little bit with the commander from San Diego. I'm, by the way, Rick Easton, retired SWO. Question about the integration with the allies. I think we have a lot of things out there that we're duplicating effort on, that being just one of them. So what's the vision? Is our vision today to, in 5 years, 10 years, have we got the task force, have we got the team that's truly looking across the joint force, maybe within the Navy first and across the joint force, to make sure as we have all these acquisition programs and stovepipes, we're not duplicating effort, which it seems to me we are, which causes a lot of inefficiencies. So from an acquisition point of view, I think we could do a lot better. And my question to you is, how do we do a lot better? Where do we want to pin a timeline on what I think is the vision that the CNO and everybody's sort of talking about? And then from a manpower personnel perspective, which I think is critical, I believe we're still very much in a legacy construct. And as we get ever more complex systems out there, it takes, I think, a more senior force at the journeyman and master level to do it. Should our force be 3 years older? How do we compensate them? How do we move beyond where we are? To Admiral Kitchener's point, it's my job to deliver training. When's the fire hose of training so much that you're, a master of no skill? At what, how do we want to structure that going forward, particularly when we have the cost of manpower is going to drive the manpower numbers down? Is it time that we look at a 30-year career and we have a lot of masters out there to make sure we're employing our ship systems correctly?
Yeah, Rick, let me talk a little bit about some of the things, at least on the manpower and experience level, because I think you've really kind of hit the target there. So what we did is, one of the things, the way our manpower system works, is that, we bring in all these people, and then we have some training, and then we distribute them to the force. Well, until, about the last year, I didn't, as the type commander of the surface forces, I didn't really get a vote in where some of those people went, right? And so that's really important, right? Because we know from measuring systems, and we've learned this from the other communities, as the A sub O of your equipment increases with your proficiency of your team, right? And so we've actually been able to kind of lay some of that groundwork for that. So over the last year, we've been working what we call SurfMex, kind of looking at the aviation model of to get away from this fit-fill and measure experience and proficiency among 6 rates. And we started about a year ago, and just recently, we've actually done a number of deep dives as we built the infrastructure to do this back at NPC. I looked at, for example, we had a ship in the Pacific that had an engineering casualty. And it was like, okay, if you look at the metrics of that ship from a fit-fill perspective, it meets all the requirements. And I said, let's take a look at the engineering department. And as we built into this program, we were about, a couple of 100 points below what we consider to be the red line. And when you looked at it, you had a chief with experience, you had a first-class petty officer with a lot of experience, but it wasn't in engineering, right? They had been ashore doing something else, and so they hadn't built that proficiency. So I do think it's allowing us to focus, and then it's where do you get that training and where do you do it, to your point. And that goes to our investments, I think, in simulators, and then building up and measuring people not only in maritime skills, which we've invested a lot in, but now in tactical skills and engineering skills and laying out those pipelines. And so we're at the beginning of that journey, but I'm pretty encouraged so far by how we do it. But I don't disagree. It requires a completely different look, how we shape this force that we're building now, than the way we've done it in the past. So, yeah, and we're all in on it, and we're looking at it, and actually, I would argue it's moving a little quicker than I thought, and that's mostly because other communities are replicating the same thing, and we're kind of working together on it.
Yeah, your comment of legacy and stuck in it is exactly correct. So Amex is a means to an end. It's not going to be the repair all or the fix all for us. It's going to be where we've aligned skills. We've been able, within naval aviation, with 4-star approval, we've been able to do that internal detailing, that internal assignment, so that the Byzantine rules in Millington are adhered to based on the rule set that the TICOM set up. I like your concept if somebody would stay in for 30 years. John now's got the assigned to or promote to assignment, where you're taking a skill set, folks apply. They immediately get the pay raise and they get the new rank if they are selected to go into that job. So, there is a screening process. And then they also get a leg up at the boards on how we're going. How do we keep people in, some of the skill sets that we're going to need. And you miss some of the horizontal entry, some of the skill sets, especially for Kelly's skill sets, but for us to have some of the horizontal as well as the potential compensation. It doesn't have to be the financial piece. Where do we let them off the golden career path? Where do we let them go for education and do things that are of interest to them, at the same time that we maintain the warfighting capability of the Navy? So you're spot on in your question.
Okay, great.
Thank you, sir.
Let's move over here to Admiral Harris. Love the name, by the way. Just saying.
Well, I always said that you were the real Admiral Harris. I was the rear Admiral Harris. So this question is for all the 04s and below. We train for what we believe is going to happen, and we educate for everything else. Could you talk to the 04s and below about investing time in education, vice training, to inform and make a more adaptable force for the unknown that's coming? You're welcome, Admiral Rondeau from Navy Postgraduate School.
So let's start with Admiral Jablon.
So obviously, a priority for the Navy is education, right? And you're right, we train for what we believe is going to happen. But, you know, within the submarine force, we have pivoted to our talent management boards, where we offer the ability for our submarine officers to go and get their master's degrees in residence education. So we are shifting the submarine force priority for education, which we believe is so important, as you discussed. We're sending more people to Naval Postgraduate School, more people to Navy War College, more in-residence education with that shift throughout the Navy. And I think all the communities are doing that.
So from the Marine Corps perspective, we've, obviously PME has always been a huge part of, you know, you check into the basic school as a young officer and they hand you a, you know, Clausewitz, you got to read it. I don't know if that's education, but certainly we've invested a lot in PME, and I will tell you that coming out recently, if you're unaware, we started his doctorate program, which is pretty impressive, and it's a huge, huge, massive commitment. And there's other things he's doing as well within education, but just making it better.
Yeah, I would just put a plug in our partnership with Naval Postgraduate School. We've been working on the certificate programs relative to global competition and some of the opportunities that afford officers more flexibility in the course of their career to pursue the broader education. Because at least in our view, everybody's got to understand competition and be versed in it. You don't necessarily have to have a master's in it, but we have been looking at that mid-range of education on how we continue to promote those opportunities and afford folks to acquire those skills and knowledge through the course of the career.
Yeah, this is the Fleet Scholarship Education Program for us, SecNav Tours with Industries, career intermission side, and then Pepper McCoy up at Nautic right now has been able to convey through the UK graduate level degree for the MISERs, the Maritime Intelligence Surveillance and Reconnaissance, either commander or coordinator. Still arguing over that C word there, but allowing the education piece to also filter in on the air combat training continuum piece as we progress through the levels there.
Just real quick for me, we continue to be strong advocates of education. I think Admiral Weitzel mentioned the industry internships. Phenomenal program. Need to do more of it and send more of our people that way. And then the last thing I'd leave you with, it's got to be the right education. We've got to think a little bit differently. We need different skill sets now. You know, we have a good partnership with NPS, AI, robotics, machine learning, you know, more OR people and OA people. I mean, that's kind of what we get. So we've got to shape it the right way for what we need in the future as well.
Yeah.
Thanks to the panel for a great discussion, and I believe
Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
No.
Hello, panel, can you hear me now? Okay. Thanks for a great discussion. I believe this question applies to the whole panel, but in the spirit of time, I'll address it to you, Admiral Eschbach. How seriously are the sea services taking the threat of quantum computing and its ability to decrypt our secure networks and endpoints? How are you planning to address this, and what can industry do to help you achieve your goals in that area?
I would say that we do take it seriously, but I think in that particular area, we take it seriously in partnership across DoD right now in terms of our understanding of what the competition is doing, and then also in our partnerships with industry, research labs, et cetera, on how we're progressing and advancing the same capabilities. I do have the Warfighting Development Center with its own AI effort, Task Force Station Hypo, where we are looking and making sure that we're looking across all these efforts in order to best integrate them, and then looking for those outreach opportunities as we see them on things that we might be able to scale. And so I do think we take it seriously, but I guess I would echo the theme that's been up here through the panel, that it's another one where I think we are concerned we're not moving fast enough. And the capacity we have to look across a bunch of different technical changes, significant capabilities that are coming down the line, I think challenges all of us. I'm sure challenges all of you daily in trying to be imaginative enough on how some of these capabilities could actually be employed.
Yes, sir. Dean Patterson from KSA. Can you hear me? Dean Patterson from KSA. And this question, in the interest of time, is for Vice Admiral Kitchener. So our naval forces are being challenged daily by our adversary. And my question for you is, how important do you see non-lethal weapon technology as we move forward in trying to be able to engage with some of those adversaries?
It's a great question. It's funny because I was just kind of talking to the training team a little bit about this earlier in the week, so it's the timing is very good. Personally, I think all the tools we can have, we want to learn how to use. You know, everything from the discussion we've been having lately is simply just shouldering tactics. Where do we train those? Do I want to train them to junior officers at SWAS? Probably not, right? I want to do fundamentals there. But I do think that if we can bring more tools into onto our ships, whether they're non-lethal or lethal, I'm all for it. We just have to balance that, right, with what we're trying to get at as far as the high-end missions. And so that's the measured approach I've been taking for it, because we have a lot to do, and on a ship, as you know, a lot of different missions. And so trying to make sure we're focusing those crews and making sure they're focused on the right missions and not just, you know, focusing on a lot of other different things that would be nice to have, but not necessarily contribute to what we're doing out there. But yeah, I'm willing to listen to stuff like that. I'm just not sure how it would fit in to some of the mission sets we have right now.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Hello. Thank you. Jeff Schogel with Task and Purpose. I have a question for General Heckel. Given the types of weapons that China has, especially missiles that could potentially sink an amphibious assault ship, how many casualties would the United States likely take in a war against China?
Okay, that's kind of a broad, really, really broad question. Again, my previous comment about survivability, right? Survivability is a lot of things. Susceptibility, you know, so, I mean, you know, again, it sounds like you're one of the guys that draws a DF-21 line and says everything's dead inside that. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about, for instance, the light amphibious warship that the Commandant's going after. Part of our theory with that going forward is hiding in plain sight. These are some of the most populated sea lines in the world, right? I mean, vast majorities of commerce, travel, and part of the law would be to kind of blend in plain sight. And again, from the discussion about where in the competition, crisis, conflict continuum you are, our bid for success is that in the whatever number of days of ambiguity that we move around within the littoral archipelago, we have forces there with our partners and allies persistently all the time forward. We're not doing an Iwo Jima again, right? So I mean that needs to be clear. That's not what we're talking about here. That's not what Force Design. That's not what EABO is about. I know I probably didn't answer the question, but it's kind of broad.
Let's take a question from over here.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Excellent. John Greenstone. I'm from a software company called Bluescape. Doing a little homework for this show and watched a video that was put out by Admiral Selby around sort of next generation Navy and the small, the agile, the many, which seems to indicate a lot around collaboration, coordination, building that common operating picture. I've certainly heard about Project Overmatch. And Admiral Harris, this morning, you said something I thought pretty interesting in your keynote around what you really want was something as simple as just an easier way to pick up the phone and call people. And I just wanted to open it up to the panel. What is everyone's opinion around the fundamentals of collaboration, coordination, communication when you're balancing that tension of information security? And how do you think breaking through those challenges might help us be a more effective force?
Kelly, you want to grab that?
Well, I'm a big believer in that we obviously want to be able to communicate and collaborate via as many tools as we possibly can. We want to be able to do it across all frequencies in the spectrum. We don't want there to be barriers to how anything moves. And I'm also the principles of, yes, it could be very simple in terms of, is it like the plain old telephone, or is it a system that's much more complex in terms of how it operates and ultimately moves data from one point to another? But I think we ought to be embracing all of that, and that we shouldn't be restricting to a high-end solution or a low-end. And so I think one of the things we're looking at right now is we actually have a pretty good distribution of capabilities. How do we work across that architecture just to improve the resiliency and the interoperability of that and how things move? So to Admiral Harris's point, we have made some progress in that you actually can find the Army, Air Force, and Marine Corps in our global address book now. You have to open a different drop-down menu to do that, so it does require some assistance if you're at the 3-star level for an aide to come in and actually find that for you. But we continue to make progress, and I think actually one of the upsides of COVID was I think actually demonstrating to us and actually really forcing us to adapt and integrate capabilities that we had been reluctant to integrate because of the information security concern, and yet there are really good ways for us to encrypt and protect information, and that's where we've got to take risks. We've got to lean in to figure out how do we embrace that, and then how do we improve it if it turns out it doesn't have the security that we'd like it to have. So I think, I think we're aligned in trying to take advantage of all those solutions that are out there.
Yeah, I think we've, as Navy and Naval Aviation, we've seen the rice bowls affect us where we've had unique, exquisite systems, and we've talked to industry over the last couple of years that, that's not where we're operating in working with Doug Small and Project and Overmatch so that we have that redundant, resilient, reconstitutable, multi-path, multi-security where you decide along the path where you're doing the encryption piece. But sooner or later, the lightning bolts that everybody likes to attack the single lightning bolt, if the lightning bolts are in the thousands, sooner or later the information is going to get across and we'll have a weapons quality solution on the threats no matter where they're hiding.
Let's take another question.
Thank you, sir. With Nova Power Solutions, I'd like to revisit a comment by Admiral Weitzel on training quickly. You had indicated during your remarks that industry was missing the mark in providing training, specifically with the ATs and the E2D. My question really becomes, how are you providing the demand signal for training, and which pieces is industry coming up short on?
Test. That's the open kimono on my part, where we've realized, where our shortfalls in Triton, E2D, JSF, as we go into Block 3 Super Hornet. I should be lead turning the duck here on what training we need to have. We're following a model right now in Ready Relevant Learning as the Navy moves down that path to train at a fundamental low level and then provide career level training throughout the careers of the individual. What we're finding is because of the exquisite nature of the platforms that we have, that starting level of training is not going to allow us to keep up. So, I'm advising the Ready Relevant Learning panel, a little walk on eggshells at the 4-star level here, that where Ready Relevant Learning has not delivered a single rate for naval aviation, and where we have to go, and then break into the proprietary. Where can you deliver me training? You're already training your own FSTs. Where can you write a syllabus that now just takes it out of the FST in a cost-effective manner, and now you turn it into an enlisted training course for that? And I will work on giving industry very urgently where I need that help.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, Admirals. General Mackenzie Kramer with TAGUP. We know that targeted preventative maintenance is critical both to equipment readiness and availability, as well as extending the service life of aging fleets. Could you briefly speak to the current implementation of conditions-based maintenance, grade its effectiveness, and describe how you see predictive maintenance and analytics fitting into your future maintenance programming?
Yeah, I can start on that one because it's a topic near and dear to my heart. Is condition-based maintenance is something that we, quite frankly, are way behind industry on, right? If you look at some of the other organizations, a trucking company or, build tractors, they've been doing that for a long time, and I've talked to them a little bit about it. You know, we've had some fits and starts. We've had some systems on our destroyers for a number of years, ICAS, which is not really what we're talking about, but it was our first attempt. We had a couple of pilots we ran on LCS, didn't really come to much. FFG 62, we're all in. We're investing it. That has been one of the key pillars to building that ship. As we work towards that, you know, I've sort of asked, and the vice chief has kind of embraced and has been a huge ally as we move towards trying to expand this across the force. Because we know, right, that we're taking apart good engines and good pieces of equipment at certain periods in their life, and we're breaking them, and we don't need to do that. And so we've got a program now we're looking at on the DDG 51. I've asked to take components of the FFG 62 initiative for condition-based maintenance and experiment with it on other ships, on LHAs and LHDs and LPDs. And so we're doing that. But we want to get to a common system. And I think one of the things that's different as we move forward is we need to be able to do that on board the ship, right? Our sailors need to be able to provide and utilize that data. I'm not saying we don't want to send it off for larger analysis and root cause failure stuff, but it's got to, you know, at the point of impact, be effective. And that's sort of what we see as the future. But yes, FFG 62, we've got one on DDG 51, and we've got a few, you know, microclimates going on other ships. And the idea is to get this into the fleet because we want to be prescriptive. We want to move away from this antiquated way of, okay, because it says we take it apart, let's take it apart. It'll reduce the burdens on sailors, allowing them to focus more on warfighting. There's a lot of goodness to it, and we need to move faster. So thanks for that question.
Yeah, the move, you know, industry's given me briefs this year on condition-based maintenance. Navy's moving to CBM. You know, our victory, and it's small, is the Hornet Health Assessment and Readiness Tool that solved the physiological events and episodes that we were having. So we downloaded maintenance card data with cabin altitude and the hits on the ECS there, and then it with MSP codes, it drove us right to a component that was in many cases, in most of the cases, it drove us to the components before they failed. So, you know, with industry now and the platforms that we're solving or we're going to bring into the fleet, the CBM is going to be a critical part as we write requirements documents to incorporate in all of our newer platforms, and the ability to retrofit back.
Okay, so we've got 5 minutes, and there's 5 questions left. So we won't get through it the way we've been doing it, but what I want each of the questioners to do is ask your question of a specific individual, and we'll get all 5 questions in, and then we'll answer the questions. And that'll wrap up this session. Okay, so let's start with your question.
Thank you. Good morning, Admirals. General Lieutenant John Hilsinger, Intelligence Officer and Instructor at Information Warfare Training Command, San Diego. My question is for Vice Admiral Aschbach. As we look at the LVC construct as an instructor, I'm obviously very excited what that means for the quality of our training. My concern lies more with manning, in terms of having the right manning at the right time in the OFRP cycle to ensure that the training is being taken advantage of, particularly in execution. So my question is, what are we doing to ensure we have the right manning throughout the OFRP cycle? And secondly, have we considered using homesteading as a way to grow subject matter expertise, particularly in relation to our strategic competitors?
Hi, Mallory Shelbourne with USNI News. My question is for Lieutenant General Heckel. You talked a lot about the fear of over-engineering, and you all talked about getting capabilities out to the warfighters. I'm wondering, what's impeding you? What kind of obstacles are you facing? Are there authorities you need that you don't have? If you could speak to that. Thank you.
Hi, Megan Eckstein with Defense News. For Rear Admiral Jablon, we've heard from Admiral Gilday that we're prioritizing in the budgets readiness over capacity, but I wonder for the submarine fleet, where both are very much tied up in the same industrial base, how does that tension play out?
Yes, sir. Commander Ed Jatho from Naval Postgraduate School, PhD student in CS. I hear and feel, my question is for, I apologize, Admiral Aschbach, for you. I hear and feel the sense of urgency to adapt adopt and move forward to dominate future wars. Going forward in adapting that new technology, new ways of doing war, what shoal waters do you perceive that are inherent, and how are we ensuring we don't run aground with adopting fragile tech, replacing known difficulties with perhaps new and more insidious vulnerabilities?
Morning, Admirals General. I'm Dave Worth from the MITRE Corporation. Question for Vice Admiral Eishbach. Everybody's trying to go fast, and we hear that all the time. Admiral Kitchener talked about the forge and the software factories and the attempt to get minimum viable products into the hands of sailors so you can get that rapid feedback and grow these things iteratively. But then you talked about the need to make sure that we have training in place, that we have the doctrine in place, so that we have actual warfighting capability when we put these products out. Is anybody thinking about minimum viable doctrine and minimum viable training to match the pace of the forge and overmatch and what they're trying to achieve so that we can really deliver all of this together as a warfighting capability? Thanks.
Let's go with Jeff, and then Hazel, and then Kelly. Since you have the last three questions, you can answer them all at the same time. Jeff?
Okay, great question about readiness versus capacity. And I did talk about, hey, we're at a low of 47 SSNs right now. So how do we meet our commitments? And I can reiterate that we meet all our operational commitments. We're able to ensure that our ships are combat ready when they deploy and meet the requirements of our combatant commanders that are placed upon us. What happens is it results in less ability to do tactical development at sea. So we don't have as many submarines to go out and do tactical development or CO's discretionary time, but we're still able to prepare the ship to be combat ready when they deploy. So it's more difficult, it's more deliberate, it takes more input from the TICOM staff to do that, but we're able to meet our what we're tasked to do.
Okay, so yes, sir. So real quick, great question. Fear of over-engineering, yes. You know, you can probably, all of you can probably think of any given scenario where we've over-engineered something, and you end up with internal fuel tanks and V-22s that are over-engineered, overweight, overcost, and don't do anything that we ask them to do, okay? And that's coming from the former requirements officer that was the guy responsible for that. So the authorities, I think it's the issue is it's a bureaucracy, right? And, I think somebody once said that a camel is a horse designed by a committee, or, consensus is agreeing to say what everybody, is unwilling to say publicly, right? And so we kind of get in this do loop, and I think the authorities piece, we're finding our way, and things like the Raider Fund with Undersecretary Hsu. I mean, we're doing a lot of things, and I think it has become readily apparent at the highest levels within DoD that we need to move quickly, and that's what this is all about, sense of urgency. And again, I'm being honest about this. Is there going to be risk associated with it? You betcha. But that's what we do as leaders, right? We look at it, we evaluate the risk, because risk never goes away. If we continue to over-engineer, over-cost everything, and over-schedule everything, the Chinese are just going to get farther and farther and farther ahead. So risk doesn't go away, and I'll shut up.
Yeah, I'll work the questions in reverse. I actually think the last two are linked. I love that. Minimum viable doctrine and minimum viable training. And I want Admiral Vernaza to integrate that in what we're doing at the Warfighting Development Center. But we do need to go fast. Some of that's driven, we're beholden sometimes to when are platforms available for installation of capability. And so we do assume risk sometimes in how fast we move based on opportunity to integrate capability. But I agree with you. I am pressing my team really hard on capability is not helpful if we actually haven't trained to it. It'll be on a platform, but nobody will know how to use it or take care of it. And so we've got to figure out how to pace that better. And we have been trying to prioritize how we get after that and then how we bake that in on the front end from making a decision to accelerate. How do we concurrently apply the same effort to make sure we know what we're doing? And then LVC, which I've talked about, is fundamental to that because in many cases we are guessing right now on what our capabilities can do. We white card a lot of stuff in exercises on the information warfare side of the spectrum, and we tend to want to be really optimistic about the capabilities we can deliver. My guess is in some cases we probably are more effective than we know we are, and in some we are not as effective as we think we are. And we also are at risk, I think, of fratricide in our capabilities if we can't get into an environment where we can see them running concurrently and how effective they'll be. So we are focused on that. And then in terms of the shoal waters, on all these new capabilities, I'm comfortable actually, and I'm where my Marine counterpart is on, we've got to take the risk to integrate new capability, but we've got to be pacing it with the training and the manpower and other things that go with it. And I do think the shoal waters for us are underestimating sometimes the investment we do need to make in applying the right people, the depth of the training that may be required to integrate the capability, and then what's also required in terms of permanent sustainment and maintenance, that we tend, again, to want to believe we're delivering an efficiency, and it's not as efficient as we'd like it to be. And if we really want to maximize the capability, we have to think through all of it in terms of the readiness of the capability. And then finally on the LVC, we are looking at manning in the OFRP. Part of that will come with another what we call .MLPF review that we're doing as a result of signing out the Information Warfare Commander CONOPS finally, that just went up to the 4 stars for final signature this week after 3 years of collaboration with everybody to get that finalized. But that will drive that we look again on how we optimize getting the right people in the right positions, particularly for our strike groups and our amphibious readiness groups, and then what's the duration with which they need to stay. And so that's important work. And then on homesteading, I'm a proponent of homesteading, but for different reasons. I don't actually think we can homestead or dwell to get smart on competition. And I actually value in this fact that I'm a global TICOM. Our competition is global, they're everywhere. So staying in the Pacific now, it does not necessarily mean that you will know everything you need to know about China. And staying in the Norfolk area does not mean that you'll know everything you need to know about Russia. They're confronting us in ways now that we've got to have the versatility to understand the threat regardless of where we're operating from. And so I do think homesteading has value, and we ought to continue to look at that as a tool for how we best manage our talent, but for different reasons. And we ought to press on the understanding of the competition in every place that we're stationed right now, because the competition is confronting us everywhere across the globe.
Okay, thanks everybody. We ran over a little bit, but I want to turn it over to General Lawrence to close this out. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, and it was great. Your message was clear: the need for urgency, whether on land, sea, or undersea. The ability to project power to all domains is what we heard today. So thank you very much for your message. We'd like to present to you a token of appreciation from the Naval Institute book, War Transformed: The Future of the 21st Century, Great Power, Competition, and Conflict by Mick Ryan. Thank you again very much. It was great.
Thanks everybody for your questions.